Welcome to another installment of Friday Q&A. I hope you're all doing really well. Thank you for your questions this week. There are a lot of them. They're all really good. I'm looking forward to answering them in this video. And if you have questions for the next Q&A, please let me know in the comments. Today's video is sponsored by Cherrytone, makers of the finest hand-wired tube amplifiers. To learn more, visit cherrytone.com. The most popular question this week was how my cat's doing. He's doing great. He's had an awesome week. He's always having a pretty good time, even though, you know, when I stick a camera in front of his face, he kind of looks like he's not having a great time. He's nearly 16 years old. So he's getting on a little bit, but he's not slowing down or anything like that. He's still, still just being himself, taking up a room on my bed, leaving me little surprises around the studio from time to time, and it feels like he's able to roll on a piece of grass once and bring in 3 metric tons of dirt into the studio. But that's why we love cats. They're awesome. They kind of remind me of, guitar players, because as guitar players, we're super self-centered and often very selfish and obsessed with ourselves, and cats are just a reflection of that. So I feel like that's why a lot of guitar players like cats, because it's a little bit like looking in a mirror. All right, let's move on and talk about some questions which popped up during the week. I got asked about Dan Huff and what I think about Dan Huff because I did a video with the Mesa Studio preamp. Dan Huff is amazing. This particular sound that I've got at the moment, definitely has a little bit of schmo going on at the moment. If you haven't seen his instructional videos, basically about how to be a great studio guitar player on YouTube, go and watch those. I love Giant. They had some fantastic songs. In fact, while I remember this, you should go and check out my buddy Luke Gallagher's channel. I know he's hung out with Dan a bunch, and I feel like he's got a cover of a Dan Huff Giant solo somewhere on his channel. Off the top of my head, I don't know if this is true, but it feels like something Luke would do. He's an incredible player as well, so go and check him out. And yeah, Dan Huff, fantastic. This is for Dan Huff. That's actually a tone match that I made of my Mesa Studio preamp. I slapped some compression and some chorus reverb and delay on it, and you can get that on the Fractal audio forum. I read something, it was probably a comment where someone was saying that, Dan Huff went and replayed all the guitars on Whitesnake's 1987. And, if you listen to 1987 and you listen to the first Blue Murder album, that's the same person playing guitar, and that's John Sykes. I know Dan probably did some overdubs. I think there's he retracked the solo for one of the radio versions for Here I Go Again, something like that. It might have been someone else, but yeah, it's definitely John playing on that album. And before I get into this, I better change over to a distorted sound. My favorite riff on 1987. That video that I did, 5 Killer Riffs, Whitesnake 1987, just hit 100,000 views, which is kind of mental. Thank you to everybody who watched that. So out of those riffs, there's probably 2 which stand out. Bad Boys is the one that I just absolutely love, and I love riffing out on that. Monstrous, so much fun. I love that. I call it a C Lydian chord that John plays all the time, but essentially it's like taking a C add 9 chord and adding in the raised 4th degree. So you'd have, the notes C, F sharp, the open G, and then the D note. That kind of thing. I call that chord C Lydian. Someone's riding a hog down the road. And you hear that all over the 1987 album. You hear that all over the first and the second Blue Murder album. Queensryche used that chord a lot as well. It's a pretty cool chord. So Is This Love uses that chord, I think, somewhere, but there's the other ballad, Looking for Love, on there, basically like a rewrite of that. I really like that. And then the last song on the CD version that I have, which is actually in drop D, which is kind of cool, which is You're Gonna Break My Heart Again. And some people mentioned that on the original release, that song wasn't on there. But yeah, it's absolutely killer. But I think if I had to pull out some Whitesnake, my go-to riff is still Bad Boys. Alrighty, Nembrini Audio Cali Reverb plugin. Am I going to do a video with it? I have that plugin. I'm going to do a video with it. It's a dual rectifier emulation, which I'm always excited about. So maybe I'll have to pull out some of the Back to Zero riffs because I tracked all of that album with my old dual rectifier. As you guys know, because I always talk about it when I talk about that particular amp. Different to the Neural DSP Fort and Cali plugin, the Fort and Cali is essentially a hot rodded Marshall, kind of similar to an Atomica, which is kind of similar to the Cherrytone Molecular that I have. So yeah, keep your eyes peeled for that. Nembrini do some really fantastic sounding plugins, and they're kind of modeling all my favorite amps at the moment. If they would do an ADA MP1 plugin, that would be amazing. Either them or Mercurial. One of them has to do it. Somebody has to do an MP1 plugin and make us all happy out there. Talking about the MP1 and Extreme and Nuno, somebody asked if I can play the solo from He-Man Woman Hater. At the moment, the answer is no, but I have been practicing it, so hopefully I'll be able to put up a treat or a little how not to play on that solo, because it's kind of kicking my butt at the moment. But what a fantastic record. If you listen to the first Extreme album and you listen to the second Extreme album, the production and the songwriting, I think they just take a whole step up. They kind of just... They sound like a really good hair metal band on the first album, and then they just go into this different gear on the second and third albums, and they're just this amazing rock and roll band with really, really excellent songs, and just one of the greatest guitar players ever on guitar, obviously, because that's what Nuno plays, it's guitar, and his playing just has so much groove and charisma. And yeah, I mean, he was one of those guys. He had the chops, he had the looks, he had it all. Probably one of those guys that you'd get really annoyed being around too long. But yeah, I will do something with that solo once I've actually learnt how to play it properly. Right, moving along. This is a really funny comment. This takes the cake for comment of the week. It was on my 5 Killer Riffs Richie Blackmore video, and this person said, why was I talking about the scales Richie was using? Because, I played Gates of Babylon on there, so I'm talking about harmonic minor, Phrygian dominant, the double harmonic scale. And this person made the point that, there's 12 semitones in music. Just use them. Why would you bother with scales? And while this comment kind of speaks for itself, it's worth addressing because, why do we use scales? And why don't we just talk about everything like the chromatic scale? And the reason is that the relationship that different notes have to one another is important. Like knowing what a major third is and what it sounds like versus, say, a minor third. And knowing that a particular scale has a major third interval in it kind of means that we can draw a relationship between, that piece of language, major third, those notes and the distance between them, major third, and what we hear. And that lets us communicate it. So scales, they're a piece of language. Intervals are also a piece of language, but they're also something that we hear. So that's why I talk about that stuff, because understanding it can help you not only understand how music works, how your favorite rock and roll songs work, but you can also implement it and write your own songs with it, which is kind of part of the fun, being creative with music. So yeah, on the flip side as well, go and listen to some Arnold Schoenberg and some Ciro music and some atonal music where those kind of rules get broken and rearranged heavily, and rock and roll music does not do that. So that's why I like to talk about those things. Okay, a budget home studio setup. What would I recommend? Mike Nielsen did a great video, shootout on different audio interfaces for guitar. If you haven't seen that, go and watch it. As with all of Mike's stuff, it's fantastic, but I think it'll help a lot of people make a decision based on the budget that they have when it comes to different interfaces. Watching that, it kind of confirmed a lot of the things that I already thought and I had already tried. But for me, if you just want to record some guitar music, grab a little Focusrite Scarlett, grab either a set of headphones or some cheap studio monitors, some KRKs or some Samson Resolves, and get something like a used Mac Mini. I've got a 2012 Mac Mini that I use for everything at my home studio, and it's fantastic. I paid 450 Australian dollars for it, which at the moment is like 300 US dollars. It runs Pro Tools amazingly well. I can run Pro Tools and Final Cut at the same time, which is great for me. And yeah, it's really small and compact, plenty of ins and outs. Works nice with all my different gear, and it's basically the nerve center of my studio. So that would be my recommendation. And when it comes to digital audio workstations, that is a whole different animal. They all kind of do the same thing. So depending on your budget and your needs, just get one and get on with the process of making music. That is what's important. I'm going to play some more with this delicious 80s clean sound. May not sound delicious to you. It might just sound like absolute cheese, but I'm enjoying it. And then I'll answer some more questions. Talking about recording, what ragdoll recordings have I used the Axe effects, so digital modeling with cabinet impulses versus amps and cabs? Go and listen to our album Back to Zero, because that was before I had an Axe effects. It's mostly my old dual rectifier blended with different amps on different songs. And because of the way that came out and because of some of the things we did on it, that made me want to go and buy an Axe effects so that I could replicate it easily live. And I guess the rest is history, and our latest single, Follow the Leader, that is all Axe FX 3. No cabs on that. I think it's FabFilter Satin for the bass sound as well, so a plugin for the bass sound, which is pretty amazing. Satin's an amazing plugin, actually, multi-band distortion thing. So yeah, there's no cabs on that one, and that's probably my favorite sounding thing that we've ever done. Not just with the guitars, like the overall band mix and the way the drums sound in particular, and the vocals and the writing. So yeah, it's just kind of, your tastes change over time, the way you do things and your methodology changes over time, and I'm sure it will change in the future as well. It's kind of just about doing what's right for that particular song at that particular time. On Ragdoll songs, somebody picked this out and I was super impressed with them. The guitar solo on Rust, somebody asked if I was using an octaver or a harmonizer, and I'll talk about what I did because I played the solo. I actually used my Axe effects for that one, and I did the solo here. So the start of it, this is not the right guitar for it, but whatever. From memory, I think I might have played a low octave as an overdub on there with a really kind of distorted sound. So the main line, and then the octave. That's not the octave, you idiot. And then when it moves on to the, what's the other lick? I'm pretty sure I did that an octave higher. So where would that be? I'm hitting, on this guitar, it's F sharp and G, so somewhere around here. Whatever that is. And then there's this weird little double harmonic style lick. That was an octave as well. And then there's a diminished run at the end, the whole... that kind of thing in there, and I'm pretty sure I played on top of that thing. I did like the diminished shape 3 frets higher. So that's kind of got a parallel harmony thing going on. And then there's a harmonic minor run at the end. I played that as a diatonic harmony with the harmonic minor scale. So that's not the note. That was the hardest part of it, to get that right. Something like that. I need to be really warmed up to play that. So the way we actually did it was we just punched in individual sections and I played different harmonies. So if I was going to recreate that in something like the Axe effects, maybe I'd use a pitch block with different channels, one for an octave down, one for an octave up, one for a thirds harmony using the harmonic minor scale. And maybe there was fifths or something in there. I can't really remember, because we sat down and we were like, okay, the solo's not popping the way we want to do it. What should we do? Should I do a double? And it's like, should I do a harmony? It's kind of like, well, why not mix it all up and do something fun and creative with it? So yeah, to the person who noticed that, excellent listening skills, and that's kind of what we did. Alrighty, this has come up. I got to show you guys this guitar because you normally see it right there in all my videos, but I want to show you this weird Gem Night Swan multi-scale prototype thing, finally. This is, depending on what way you look at it, it's either somebody's wet dream or it's a nightmare when it comes to like an 80s style guitar. So this started life as a mahogany Stratocaster body in my dad's workshop, and I was like, hey dad, I want to build a gem. Can I use this body and recarve it? So that's what I did. I took a Strat body and I recarved it into a gem shape, and we put the monkey grip in. The work in here is actually super clean, which means that I definitely didn't do it. That monkey grip is definitely something he cut. And then the body just sat around for a while, and there was this Kramer Night Swan style neck. And just kind of, you know, whatever happened, the inspiration struck, and it's like, hey, let's put the Night Swan neck on the gem body, because why not? And let's fret it as a multi-scale. So as you can see, this guy has slanty frets, and it doesn't have like a specialist bridge. That's just a Strat bridge, which has been kind of modified to suit this. A single humbucker. I don't even know what the humbucker is in it. And yeah, maple neck, Burmese rosewood fingerboard, mahogany body. It's pretty bright sounding, but it kind of sounds cool. And the strings are pretty old on it, so it's not really staying in tune at the moment. But yeah, I should pull this out and do a little bit of work on it, because it's basically, yeah, this is not for public consumption. This was just a proof of concept, prototype style thing. The finish is a little bit rushed and rough on it. But I mean, I think this is gunstock oil on here. It feels really nice to play. Yeah, and if you've never played a multi-scale guitar, they're pretty fun as well. I actually find it really, really comfortable the way the strings kind of arc around. Alrighty, we have a few more questions to get through on this. Neck thickness, I'm not fussy about that. To me, neck thickness, the minutia of like action and pickup height and all that kind of stuff, don't worry about it. Just play. Just get on with it and accept that different guitars feel different. And if you like the way a particular guitar plays and sounds, play that one. Don't worry about the one you don't like, because somebody else will probably come along and enjoy that. The other question I need to get through is SPDIF connections. What's happening, and the reason I do this, is my Apollo Twin in my studio has 2 microphone preamp inputs on it. And then it has an optical input that you can expand with an ADAT. So essentially what I'm doing is I'm using the optical to SPDIF converter so that I can free up the mic preamps on my Apollo Twin, so they're free, but I can run the signal from my Axe FX into my Apollo. The bonus is that it doesn't go through the digital to analog converter of the Axe FX, and it doesn't go through the analog to digital converter on the Apollo. The digital connection, it's much more direct, and there's less conversion going on, and given that, there's less latency. So that's why I do that with SPDIF. And can you use the AX8 to control the AXFX3? You can, but it's kind of limited. So the AX8 can send MIDI program change messages, and then in the AXFX3 you can set those, you can have program change mapping so that like they could be assigned to scenes or something like that. That's how I'd use it. One preset, 8 scenes, 8 foot switches on the AX8. But I mean, you can get similar functionality out of like a MIDI controller that costs $200 or something like that. So it's kind of overkill doing it that way, but it can be done. It's not the most elegant solution, but it definitely can be done, and it's worth experimenting with. Alrighty, I hope you guys enjoyed this particular Q&A. If you have any questions for next week, please get them in the video description. If you're in the mood to support the channel, you can go and buy some Ragdoll recordings on our Bandcamp page. I will have another lockdown ISO jam online over the weekend, so keep your eyes open for that one. Those are a lot of fun, and hopefully we do some more over the following weeks as well. You guys stay safe, be excellent to one another, and I will see you next time. Cheers.